Welcome to malcolmpresents.com and our show, Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue heard on, again, malcolmpresents.com, which is a internet streaming station heard around the world. Good morning, Deborah. Oh, actually, it's good afternoon.
Good afternoon for us. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon here.
Yeah, so it's afternoon here.
Perfect. Well, I'm Deborah Manning. I'm a native Californian, used to be a news reporter in Los Angeles and also in San Diego, and moved to, of all places, Greenville, South Carolina, about 6.5 years ago. So I just got in. You'll have to excuse the way I look because we were doing all kinds of things for the hens, and we've got chickens here. We've got a couple of dozen chickens, and they needed some extra scratch and some extra feed, what have you. So you'll have to excuse the way I look, but what the heck? So at any rate.
Well, perfect. I think for your birthday or Christmas present, I'm going to get you a pair of overalls.
Oh, that would be wonderful. And a straw hat with make sure it's got the price tag on it, like Minnie.
And the straw for your mouth.
That's right. I want to introduce, this is Max. This is our littlest one here. Hi.
By the way, if you introduce Max, you have to sign a waiver.
Oh, a modeling waiver, huh?
Then I could reproduce his image on the internet or the big screen.
Well, it's funny because he's one of our, and I hate to say it, but I will anyway, but he's one of 6 cats that we have here. Every single one of them showed up on our doorstep. And since we have a home now, we had to allow them to be able to stay. And it's interesting because every single one of them get along just fine. They have their own individual personalities. This one we call the Squirminator because he was always playing and always running around. And whenever we have the orchid guy come in for pests and things like that, this cat follows the orchid man from room to room. And Brian adores him. In fact, Brian, who's our orchid guy, says, I'm going to get Max an orchid hat. That'll be perfect. So anyway, but as I say, it's been an interesting change from Southern California. As I said, I was born there in Los Angeles when my folks came out from the East Coast, and they were looking for a new life, and they certainly did get it. My father was an architect, worked for the William Pereira company. And of course, William Pereira did things like the Trans-America building, did the Tom Bradley building in Los Angeles at LAX. My dad also did a lot of work at the University of California at Irvine and championed a lot of the circular architecture because he wanted to encourage people to walk. And that's in fact what at the University of Irvine, you have to walk basically in a large circle because all of the buildings are built in a complete circle. So it's interesting being here in South Carolina. Beautiful weather today. And I have to tell you, my goodness gracious, we have irises that are sprouting like crazy. The crepe myrtle I can see out of my office window here. Crepe myrtle is all sprouting. Just absolutely completely glorious. However, we're about ready to have a heat wave. Yes, we just had about 4 days ago a surprise storm that came in, and it gave us about 2.5 inches. Fortunately, it happened overnight around from 4 until 8 o'clock in the morning. But 2.5 inches, which was about normal here. We're up to, this is April, middle of April. We're up to now 17, almost 20 inches for the year. We'll probably go a good 70, which is totally different than Southern California. Totally different.
Well, I think I told you, last week about the mayor of Charleston, South Carolina, was talking about how the city might be sinking or enveloped by the high tides now that the level of the water is rising. And I think he's going to sue the oil companies for creating.
Oh, really? Interesting.
He's going to sue somebody because he says, South Carolina can't or Charleston can't afford, to do its own, preparing for the sea levels to rise.
Yeah.
And that's worldwide. We're going to be losing islands. We're going to be losing, certain, especially in the, Southeast Asia.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because even China is realizing that they are, of course, building all of their own islands now, unfortunately, in the middle of the South Pacific. And in fact, I understand that China just managed to do an agreement with the Solomon Islands. That's the islands that we lost Amelia Earhart over. And so it'll be very interesting. China is rattling its chains, obviously, because of the situation that's going on in Ukraine. What, we're at day 56 with Russia in Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Isn't that what we're at now?
I'm not sure of the number.
I'll tell you, they've shown the will to fight, and we've talked about this before. Why in the world we are so doggone slow getting the weapons over to them, I don't know. I certainly wish that we could have gotten the weapons over to them quite a bit sooner, because they certainly need it. I mean, the devastation that you're seeing every single day is just, once again, you're looking at what happened in World War II. And
But I'm wondering if they were a bit leery about sending weapons there, for an example of what happened in Afghanistan.
that's very possible. When we left,
that we deserted so many weapons.
yeah, but we lost what, $8 billion worth of weapons? Is
Yeah.
that what the deal was?
Yeah, something like that. But the question is, we didn't know whether the Ukrainians would, fight so fiercely,
Yeah,
or whether they could, hold off the Russian, army,
yeah.
which they
But
did. Now, can you imagine if they didn't? And
no,
would get if we had armed them and the Russians had captured all the arms?
that's a good point. That's a very good point, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
But they're holding them off. It's amazing. It's they're holding them off. I mean, they were able to destroy one of the premier vessels of Putin's navy. They were able to destroy it. You just shake your head and go, when people are fighting for their freedom and their homeland, the ferocity is there.
well, the only negative thing about that is, and I haven't heard any follow-up stories, that the boat sank, but supposedly it had 2 nuclear warheads.
Oh, terrific. If it's not one thing, it's another.
Yeah. Rosanna Dana.
I'll tell you. Well, it's interesting because a lot of people are asking how the United States are getting the weapons into Ukraine. And I think the answer to that is you've got a lot of private entities, a lot of private corporations that are getting the weapons into the Ukrainians. And it's very interesting to see how they're getting them across the border, utilizing a whole variety. Of course, that's what happened in Afghanistan. You had private companies that are taking the time to get the rest of the Americans out of Afghanistan, and also some of our Afghan compadres to get them out as well.
What's scary is you have private companies, but you also have private armies, which I know. I mean, they fought. They're fighting. I forget what the name of the group is. There was Vietnam and
mercenary groups. I got to tell you, been around for thousands of years, have they not? So,
but anyway, getting a little closer to home, we were going to start a stock market analysis.
Yeah.
And what's happening, and it's been fun this last week.
I'll tell you.
Topped off with Netflix.
I'll tell you the situation, and it's very funny because a lot of people ask me. Once again, I want to say I am not a professional investment advisor. I have been involved in the use of money and making sure that normal everyday people can really utilize their dollars to their maximum extent. But I'm not an investment counselor. But am I in the stock market? Yes, I am.
Well, my friend, as you know, my friend Barbara listens to our show, and now everything that she wants to buy in the market, she says, "What does Deborah think about it?"
That's very sweet. Well, it's very funny because it's not that it's complicated, but it's not that complicated. And I think it comes down to all of us kind of really looking at how we utilize the goods and services in our normal everyday life. The lifeblood of the American economy are consumers like you and me and Barbara. We keep this economy going. It's not the richy rich, it's not the poor, it's the middle class folks. And that's the reason you want to encourage as many of the underclass to become part of the middle class, obviously. But what happened this week with Netflix, and it was very interesting because I had subscribed to the Charles Payne Wall Street subscription. He's with Fox Business. Very, very good guy, very plain spoken about things. He started in Harlem as a young kid and decided he wanted to become a stockbroker, which of course was unheard of during the time that he was wanting to become a stockbroker, but he did. And he became extremely successful. And his rule of thumb is that, you know, as a normal person, you can actually make some money in the stock market. Well, what was interesting about Netflix, and he says, keep an eye on what normal people are doing. And what normal people are doing is a lot of people are getting fed up with the doom and the gloom and the unwatchable TV that is being produced by Netflix. Also, the cost of some of these programs on a business level with Netflix, there's something that was called Stranger Things. I think that's what it's called. I watched it. It's a cool little series that was going
About
on.
the kids and
Yeah, about the kids. Well, their budget is now up to $30 million an episode. That's nuts. You remember the Game of Thrones with HBO?
yeah.
Their budget was sitting at about $12 million, and that was quite a bit fancier than obviously what this one is. Bottom line is that Netflix lost a tremendous number of people. And the bottom line also is, if you look at the rundown, because I did not renew my subscription to Netflix. If you look at the rundown, I'm tired of being talked to with this woke mentality. And I do want something that's uplifting. All I saw in there was blood and gore and very negative things about dysfunctional families and murders and blah, 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 blah. I don't need that. We've been through 2.5 years, Malcolm, of this COVID, and we have been living this nightmare, so to speak. So I do think that at this point, Netflix is losing subscribers primarily because we're tired. We're fed up. We
So
want
you-
something that is positive.
So
be
do
able
you
to
think that their programming sucks and
They don't know how to handle money.
and they're paying too much for it?
They are. They truly are. But
Well,
let
I
me take you. Let me take you into the stock market today. What's interesting is down 748 points, and it's about 315 right now. That's down almost 2.15%. NASDAQ went down 264 points, almost 2% down. That's the big tech and what have you. And then S&P, which is the smaller companies, only about 95 points down, but that is 2% down. Apparently what happened was yesterday, everything was going along fine. And we were starting to see some recovery with the stock market. But what ended up happening was that Jay Powell and James Bullard, who are both the Fed chairman, which is Jay Powell, and then his, compadre, who is also a Fed chairman, or a Fed advisor, pardon me. At any rate, they made a comment saying that we will definitely take care of the high inflation. And how are they going to do it? Well, they're going to jack up interest rates. That would be the Fed funds rate, 0.5%. And they were also talking about maybe doing it 10 times. Now, we have been at basically zero in terms of interest rates for quite a long period of time. And unfortunately, what ended up happening was the Fed went ahead and printed too much money. Too much money is now chasing too few goods. So you're seeing producer price indexes. I saw producer price index going above 12, 13%, which is going to be passed on. Those are the wholesale prices. That's going to be passed on to us at the consumer level. Also at the consumer level, last month alone, we were at 8.1% in terms of inflation. That's the worst we've seen for 40 years. Now, we can remember 40 years ago, and it wasn't particularly pleasant, but I know that there's a tired 2 generations of people that have never seen this type of inflation before. So getting back to the stock market, I've reduced my holdings down to about 25% is actually in stocks at this point. The rest of it is sitting in cash. And I would suggest take your profits and sit on the sidelines until we figure out what the devil is going on here. because the inflationary situation with the supply chain is still going to impact us. Now, you keep hearing people say, oh, the consumer is flush with cash. I don't know about that, because I'm a normal person and so are you. And I'm watching each and every penny at this point right now. And I'm making decisions on a basis that says if the chicken, for example, here has gone up to $2.49 a pound. Well, I may not be buying that chicken as often. All right. I may be going to dried beans and blah, blah, blah. Now, which sounds, terribly scary, but it's part of making sure that we stay within our budget. And the feds are now trying to strong arm the economy so that we can go ahead and keep tabs of inflation. But it's, as I say, I'm at 25%. I've got a single stock that's in there. Once again, what am I looking for? Well, you can go on to, for example, Fidelity or TD, Ameritrade, what have you. What I'm looking for is I'm looking at good solid profit margins, 30, 40% profit margins. And I'm also looking at low debt, which is exactly what all of us should be doing, is low debt. So for example, in the case of Microsoft, I'm looking at 30% profit margins and I'm looking at 38% debt. The rest of the companies, they can't say that. So I've got, as I say, I've got my toe in with Microsoft at this point, and I'm just going to wait this thing out. But I do have to tell you, I mean, I was even looking at Caterpillar, which I know is going to be a good stock, and they've got some good numbers, but they were down 7 points today, and that's a lot to be losing for a major company such as Caterpillar. So I hope I didn't go over my 10 minutes, for heaven's sake.
No, we should do this more. See,
Okay.
I'm confused. I know I'm not sure how to correct inflation, because from what in a simplistic explanation, inflation to me is when people want to buy more products, but they're not the products out there.
Mhm.
So what I
Yep.
can see what's going to happen with inflation is the rice and the corn and all those produce that is being that Ukraine has or that Russia
Mhm.
produces, and that's going to be a lack on the market. They're not going to have as much, so people are going to have to pay more. I
Mhm.
could see where the boats are out in the harbor with the the major products coming in, that there's a that you can't buy it. I could see with the cars.
Mhm.
But for the life of me, I don't know why, if people have more money, that there's inflation. I would say if people have more money, it would be better. The employment rate is up.
Well,
It's been in 50 years. So I don't see why, or that we gave money during, they blame that we gave too much money out during the pandemic, that we
mhm.
shouldn't give people. But if people have more money to spend that they spent, wouldn't that lower inflation?
No, it actually doesn't. What ends up happening is, and it's like, let me give you an example of an orchard. So in other words, if you have if you have a bounty of apples in this particular orchard, maybe twice the normal number of apples, you would think, oh my gosh, the price would go up. No, the price doesn't go up. In fact, the price goes down. Why? Because you have more of the supply that people want. And as a result, the wholesaler and the retailer can go ahead and reduce the cost of apples. What happened in this particular economy was, we certainly needed to have, because of the shutdown by the coronavirus, we needed to obviously help people. In fact, we had to shut down our handyman business because frankly, we couldn't get insurance. They would not insure us as a two-person operation. So we had to go ahead and shut our business down. And we were too small, so we couldn't get the PPP loans. All that being said, unfortunately, we went a little bit too far. The feds decided to continue to print money. And also, we're paying people at that period of time not to work. Remember, we had a situation where people were, businesses, small businesses especially, were begging for employees. And in fact, it's still the case. Now we have good, solid start towards reducing the unemployment rate. It's starting to get back in where it needs to be, but people need to go back to work. We have to stop subsidizing people not to work. And it's going to take some time, unfortunately, because we have super heated this economy, and the feds are really part to do it.
Yeah, but
Unfortunately, when they start to threaten, and that's what they've been doing, jawboning, as it said, they're going to raise interest rates by 0.5% here this month, and then another 3 months, another 0.5% or a full percent. It does scare the bejesus out of the stock market. And also, with the inflation the way it is, people are starting to trim their buying habits. So everybody talking about how the consumer has plenty of money. Well, we're starting to all pull back. And that's unfortunately could be a situation where we would then start to see a recession. So we got to be careful here.
now,
That's
what exactly is a recession?
what a recession is the fact that there is going to be high dollars chasing too few goods. And we are not encouraging productivity with our corporations. So it's a real dire situation that we've gotten ourselves into. Now, I like the fact that we do have some sense of globalism. We need to be able to have a united globe. But unfortunately, when we have a situation where you have China that is controlling a majority, for example, of all the pharmaceuticals, that's nuts. I just spoke with a lady who is putting together a story about a pharmaceutical company that was picked up by an American drug maker, small company. But you realize that most all of the drugs, I believe it's the ampicillin, is made in China. Well, this group has now bought a small drug maker in Tennessee. We might actually see about getting her on the air as well. And they are now starting to make ampicillin, whereas the majority of it was coming out of China. And China, of course, has been pulling back on many of the supplies, not only from pharmaceuticals, but fertilizer, you name it. They're pulling back on things.
Yeah, certain things like pharmaceuticals or the computer chips.
Mhm.
Why hasn't the U.S. Been more aggressive? Why have we haven't been getting computer chips because it's controlled by China? Why has American industry fallen asleep? Or as you say with the drug companies, why aren't they producing more drugs?
I don't have an answer for it, except for the fact that I think that we're overly focused on other issues, woke issues, climate change issues. You and I have talked about climate change, and you and I have agreed that we need to have tax incentives to be able to get the technology where it needs to be, where it actually is functioning. But as I say, it's time to be pulling in a lot of your outstanding debt. As I've mentioned to folks, do not be paying off all of your debt at this point. Keep yourself cash rich, because we're in for some real bumpy rides here. And it's amazing because now you've got Biden's approval letters, approval polls going down into the 33-34% range. And I just, I want this man to succeed. He's my president as well. I may not have voted for him, but he's my president. But the problem that we're having right now is that even the news media is starting to turn against him. So talk about rudderless. I think we've got a long way to go to 2024.
Well, I'm not even worried about 2024. I'm more worried about 2022, because I
Yeah.
think if it continues like this, the Dems are going to lose the House. And if the Dems lose the House, I think basically we're going to be a standstill for 2 years till the presidential election comes. No one's going to make any moves. But
Well, you got to scratch your head about. I know that President Biden wants to get rid of the Title 42, which is the ability to turn back immigrants from the border because of health reasons, and yet he's promoting the masks. Of course, the Florida judge has been highly criticized for saying no more masks mandate on airplanes and transportation.
You know who the Florida judge was appointed by?
I know, by Trump, but once again, you can't.
And you know that
You can't paint the Trump paint on everybody.
and you know what, the U.S. at the Bar Association disapproved of her. She didn't even get the approval.
Well, the
Would
Bar
make it harder.
Association has its own private agenda at this point right
But
now.
it was unheard of.
Oh,
But now going back to what you say, climate change.
yeah,
To me, that's the number one issue should be of the world. Uh, I don't know. I listen to BBC, the British Broadcasting,
sure.
and like in the evening, and they have news around the world. And there's
Mhm.
not only climate change, it doesn't always only affect the US. You look along this peninsula of, starting like with Texas, going east and northeast, with the hurricanes, with the flooding, and now I think they have fires in Arizona out of control. Thank God right now, California hasn't been that bad, but I'm sure it will be. But you have the hurricanes, you have more tornadoes than ever. I mean, you're experiencing that with you. You get the sirens. Let's go. And thank God you have a basement.
Yep, we
But
do.
soon the basement's going to be very crowded, not only with cats. But you look into, Africa, where there's well, aside from the drought here in California, in Africa, I think they said there were over 140,000 kids that were dying from not only malnutrition, but from dehydration.
Horrible.
And there you have, and you're also, which I don't understand, in certain areas you have the flooding,
Mhm.
which is killing. So, and this is getting worse and worse and worse. And yet the major countries are doing little. They're paying lip service. And you listen to the kids, they're talking and they're saying, this is our world, you're leaving us. What the hell are you doing? Don't pay lip service, do something.
Well, I put it akin to the fact that if you're on an airplane and that there is an emergency and you start to lose air pressure, if you're there as a mom and you have a toddler next to you, you're not going to be putting the air mask on the toddler first. Why? Because you could pass out. You put the mask on yourself first, then you put it on your toddler. I look at it the same way as the United States. We've cut off our whole energy process. And as a result, you're seeing us start to slip in terms of our ability to be able to be the leader that we need to be in the world. Now, once again, you and I disagree in terms of the climate change because I want China to adhere to things and they're not. I want Russia to adhere to it. I want to have India adhere to it, but they're not. So until they do that, it's absurd to be asking for us to be able to get rid of our energy independence for this facade of climate curing. It's absolutely absurd. We have got to be a leader here, and we are only going to be a leader from a position of strength, not from making, because you know what, the amount of articles that are made from oil and gas and what have you. Oh, which reminds me, you asked me about where natural gas comes from. It actually is kind of like the bedfellow of oil. It's generally sitting right next to the oil. That's how they've managed to be able to get as much natural gas as they've been able to get. But go ahead.
Can they get the natural gas without getting the oil?
Yeah, they can get the natural gas without getting the oil. Yeah, they can.
What if they do that? They say natural gas burns without leaving a carbon footprint.
Yeah. Well, so does nuclear energy, and that's another issue that we should
Right,
be
but if you have oil, the next door neighbor, why aren't we going to the next door neighbor and getting the natural gas? Because that's where U.S. was very prevalent with the natural gas, and they controlled it.
Well, the other issue that we have at this point right now is that you have, with this war going on in Ukraine, with the Russians attacking the Ukrainians, that you have the European Union continuing to buy Russian gas and oil. I mean, once again, if we were able to pump what we needed to be able to pump when we were energy independent, we could go ahead and substitute Russia and make the United States to be the hero rather than having Russia continue this unbelievable barbaric war.
Well,
so
yeah, but
I don't understand the logic of this administration. I want them to do well, but they need to get off this far left progressive list of to-do items.
I think
I don't know that Biden is able to do that. He presented himself as being a moderate, but he's been anything but moderate, Malcolm, anything but.
He hasn't been able to get the projects of the left through, of the far left. I mean, it's been a standstill. I mean, he hasn't gotten the Build Back Better thing
Thank God.
and that's part of making us carbon free, the carbon footprint. But the question is, it sounds like when you say, well, Russia isn't doing it and China isn't doing it, it sounds like the kids. You do it first. I'm not going to do it before you do it. What we did with nuclear weapons. I'm not going to stop my nuclear weapons. You got to stop yours first. No, we don't trust you're going to stop yours first. So basically, all these countries have an arsenal.
But the problem is, at this point right now, we've made ourselves weaker just to say that we have the climate under control. We've made ourselves weaker, and as a result, that's why you're seeing Russia's incursion into Ukraine, and that's why you're starting to see China, the incursion that you're seeing into the South Pacific. These people are serious. I know that you and I have traveled the world, and I know my late husband and I did a lot of work in China, and these people are very, very serious, and they do not hold us in great regard.
Yeah, but
especially to some of these things that we're trying to propose.
But I don't know if they don't hold if the reason that Putin made his move was because Biden was president. It sounds like, or it sounds like, gee, there's someone that I heard, if I was president, he wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. Under that note, we'll talk more about the market.
Okay.
On our next show, and hopefully there'll be a reversal. Because I know a lot of small people are losing a lot of money.
Well, keep your powder dry, my friend. Keep your powder dry.
Okay, kid. You have a good week.
Bye-bye now.
Send my love to Fish.
Oh, and my love to Anna. Bye-bye.
Bye.